do you want to hop on and tell me? I know there was something kind of specific about this, and was it shot for? It was shot vertical. Just tell me about it.
Okay. Yeah, I shot it vertically for the first time because I have a client that buys my clips,
Yeah.
but they do everything vertical. So I've just started shooting my personal stuff. Well, this is the first time, but vertical so that they'll use them because I find that that's the only way that it really works for them. And shout out to, I'm pretty sure it was Neely who wrote on one of my videos that I posted months ago and said, oh, this person would really like your stuff. So I started tagging them on Instagram, and they messaged me and asked me if they could like pay me for my clips. So like totally credit to her in Africa.
That's amazing. Who is? Can I ask who it is?
Yeah, it's Motherly.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, and they've actually bought my entire Keepsake film, the rights to it. So I was so stoked. It's worth the effort, I suppose. So yeah.
Yes.
I was like, personal projects and getting paid for them is like my dream come true.
Right? That's amazing.
Yeah, so shout out to her for saying that to me, I guess. But yeah, so I shot it vertically, which is really challenging because composition and vertical is just shit.
Yeah.
It's not great. It's just like it's just not fun. I didn't enjoy it at all, but it is what it is. I did it. But yeah, and then I wanted to do the self-portrait for the Keepsake and the Keepsake. So it was like 3 different things that I didn't have enough time to do 3 different videos, and I'm like, surely I can just make this work for everything.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it was all like the self-portrait thing, like doing the master class was amazing, and it was like so many great ideas, but I found it like I just get frustrated because you can't produce what you would produce for somebody else for yourself.
Yeah.
So, how can I make this less overwhelming so I'll actually do it? And so I decided to just like make my clips 1 second instead of trying to get like artificial movement into it.
Yeah.
And that would be the way that I made it interesting without getting frustrated and giving up completely.
Okay.
And I decided I wasn't going to put on makeup. I was going to wear my pajamas and like it was going to be real life. That was it. There was no pressure to sort of make it anything super special. So yeah, that's what I did.
Awesome. All right. Well, I am so excited to see it. We'll get started. Good morning. Oh my gosh, I remember doing that when my kids were that little, like laying down on the bed. That was actually my favorite part of the day, was laying down, nursing them on the bed.
Oh my God, it's the only way to go to sleep.
Yeah.
You're waiting.
Oh, so gorgeous.
Thank you. Yeah, there's like a couple of jump cuts in there. There's like one clip where I noticed afterwards that I changed the exposure mid videoing, and like there's all and one couple of frames are clips are shot at the wrong frame rate, and I was just like, well, it's a personal project, so there you go.
Exactly. So I was gonna say there was one I noticed where there was an exposure change or something. I was gonna go back and find that. And that's why you pointed that out. And there was one where it was, I think it was here. I would do something in between these two clips. But that was honestly the only place where I was like, oh, that those two side by side don't really work together.
Yeah.
That was really the only place, just because.
Yeah.
Because you like turn your head, then I think like a clip of you picking her up out of bed or something would have worked really well there.
Yeah.
Almost like you could hear her waking up, because that's what it seems like. You went from like you got her to sleep and then you were working and then you got her back up. So that's the only but
With
there's
that.
so much that I love about this. Like, I'm honestly like, I don't even know what to say. This is just so perfect. And in all of the ways that, like, there's so many limitations that you have when you're shooting it and you're also in it. I think you've done an amazing job with putting it all together, and, you know, all of the very best. There's so much story in every single clip. That's what I think I love the most about it is, you know, it's not just a series of clips like random. It doesn't feel random. It feels so like well put together in a storytelling way. It's really good.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm happy with how it turned out, but yeah, I can see why people never get in the frame, because it's just so like exhausting.
I mean, like, even that's a jump cut, but I don't even care, especially for the purpose of what it is that you're doing. Like, so many of these kinds of films that get shown on social media for this kind of thing, that to me feels more like a passage of time type of thing. Like, that doesn't bother me. I think that works pretty well. And I love like your hand in the frame, and it just feels like so much. I could go on and on. It's so good, Jill, really.
Well, thank you very much.
This clip, only thing just in terms of difference, like everything else was exposed so beautifully. Even I think just this one, I don't know what you could have done differently because it's nighttime. So
Well, I can tell you what I could have done differently. I shot that in the morning because I didn't shoot one. I forgot to shoot one at night, and so it's like a really blue color. Whereas if I actually shot that when she went to bed at 7 p.m., it would have been that bright, like the orange sun sort of going down. So that would have been ideal if I would have.
Yeah. It's the only thing that felt a little bit out of place.
Yeah.
So good. All right. Well, do you have any questions for me that you want to talk about, or?
Nope. I think that's it. I'm good. Thank you.
Cool. Let's go on to, so I think I've got Katrina. Katrina, are you on? Can you unmute? I'll unmute you. You there, Katrina?
Am I here?
You are. Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry. Has my volume been on this whole time?
I muted you, I think. So
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Totally fine. Do you have video? Do you want to hop on, or?
Sure. Sorry. My kids are fighting. Hold on a second. My husband hasn't come home yet, so I don't have anybody to distract them. Let's see. I can't remember how to
That's okay.
Okay, sure.
Can you see on the screen?
I can see the screen. No.
Okay. Do you want to tell me about this film?
Sure. Yeah. My little girl, my youngest little one, is turning 1 next weekend, so I really wanted to do something different than like what I did with my other kids, which was like a cake smash.
Yeah.
So I want to do something kind of special. So I did kind of the sink bath, which I have wanted to do since I saw Allison's beautiful twin one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just kind of wanted to, yeah.
Gorgeous. Okay. And was there anything, like any questions you had or anything that you ran into while you were doing it that you wanted to ask about?
I guess wanted feedback on, I guess, the clips that I chose, and whether I timed it okay with the music. Like I find that very challenging.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, well, if you want, you can go ahead and mute yourself again, and I'll go through it, and or I can mute
Sure.
you if you're not sure how to do that.
Most of my kids have disappeared from the room, so it might not be so bad now.
Yeah. All right, cool. Here we go.
Every rising, every fall, any door that we walk, I will never stop loving you. Every path that we might find, light of day or black of night, anywhere life takes us, I will never stop loving
I love that song. Song choice is so good. The light was amazing. Really beautiful. I'm gonna
Yeah, I
go.
was lucky that day.
So just like soft and just perfect. Okay, I'm gonna go through it one more time and stop and start. This clip right here, I think exposure wise could come up a bit. It's just dark compared to the others, but I know that, you know, in terms of the light, it was pretty dark in this area, but that's one thing here. You could probably lift the highlights and whites and maybe even play with the tone curve. Are you working in Premiere Pro or another software?
Yeah, I'm using Premiere Pro now.
Okay, so in the Lumetri panel and there's the curves section. You can play with the curves there and lift like the top part, and that would help, I think, bring this up just a little bit.
Okay.
I love the way that you brought in the face, like when the lyrics started. That was really good, because you have a really good lead up into that in terms of storytelling. I thought that was really good. This is beautiful. The only thing I would say is, like, I wanted a little bit more of this. So throughout the rest of it, it's pretty similar in terms of shot types, except you do pull back a bit here. So if there was anything that I would say with regards to that, it would be maybe to pull back a bit more, but that would also be really challenging when you have a baby in a sink and you're trying to not be too far away from them. So
I did have my husband there on the side, so
okay.
when he's smiling off to the side, so I had a backup person.
Yes, yeah. So that would have been good. And maybe next time, like, hand him the camera and get in the frame a little bit yourself here. That would have been really cool, even if it was just like your hands,
Oh
and
yeah.
your arms, and, you know, stuff like that. Idea too. But
Okay.
this is beautiful. I love the water coming down.
Thank you.
I like the way that you're changing your camera position and your shot type, like, you know, going in close and a little bit further away. It's really challenging to shoot one subject really well like this without ending up with a whole bunch of different jump cuts. And I think you've done that pretty well. this shot I think could have been composed a little bit better. Like I love the droplets coming off the hair, and I love that backlight, that soft like rim light happening. But I think if you had been maybe just down shooting up, so right now, I don't know if you can see me, but like you're shooting kind of more here on her. So like if you were down more like this, shooting up, that would have worked really well compositionally there. This is one of my favorite clips. And I love the foot. I love this. I wonder if you could have gotten more like if you could have played more with reflections on that granite bench top.
Okay, yeah, that I should have tried that.
That might be an idea, yeah. This clip, I think, out of all of them, only because it's sort of going, I get the idea behind it, but I think it's not as strong as some of the others. I think there's other ways that you could have kind of, I think you're sort of starting to just end. Oh yeah, this is the last clip, right?
Yeah.
So maybe an idea instead of something like this would be something a little bit less in focus. So maybe a little bit more blur, or maybe like a rack focus out, or something like that. So just because we're moving kind of just from the baby's back and then to just the suds on the granite bench top, but I mean, it's still beautifully done. It's just that I think could have been a stronger ending, but it was gorgeous, like really, really gorgeous.
Thank you.
Loved it.
I think I'm getting better. It's getting much better. There's one of my first ones, I think, that I showed you like 4 months ago had been done with a slideshow program and with Lightroom and stuff. So with editing and shooting, I think I'm doing a bit better now.
You have made a massive improvement, Katrina. Like this is so good. You should be super proud. You're doing really,
Thank
really
you.
good. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. Let me pull back up my peoples. Here we go. Okay. So thank you, Katrina, for showing us that.
Thank you.
And let's see who we've got next. Helen, I don't think she's here. So then I have Kelly. Oh, Helen, are you here? I just didn't see you. Can I hear you? Are you, I need to just, here we go. Okay. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Am I pronouncing your name right?
Helen.
Yes. Okay, good. I just didn't know because you have an E at the end of it. So I just
Yeah, no, it's the French spelling.
I thought so. So tell me about your film.
So that was a little bit of a challenge as I don't have kids yet and not sure what to film. And I was planning on doing my dog, and she got hurt that same week. And so she was on full rest. So it was really hard to kind of find something to be doing during the week. It was memorable with nothing happening.
Yeah.
It was the weekend, and every year I bake him something that he asks. So I thought that's the only thing that's happening right now. So I decided to bake and film that with filming kind of like he was hanging out with the dog. So I was like, oh, this is kind of a usual kind of like, it's not happening every weekend, but it's something that we do. So I thought I would do that and see how it works.
Awesome. Well, so do you have any, I mean, I know that would have been a real challenge.
It was very much of a challenge. It was hard to both bake and film and go from tripod to handheld when it was basically my first film, as I put my camera once on video mode before. I was like, yeah, maybe it was too big, but I didn't want to give up.
Yes.
It took me a long time, but at the end I was very happy because that's kind of like something that we wouldn't have before, and like our life will change next year. So I was kind of happy to have that. Like it was hard to find something that would be like changing, you know, when you have kids, it's easy to find, but without kids, it's kind of like, what is it going to change next year? Like, you know, like, what is memorable about just us hanging out and watching Netflix? So, but it asked me for a lot of work, but I was quite happy. So that, you know, I kind of like, I was happy that I went through it.
Yes. Good. I'm happy that you persevered and went through it, and it's so good. Well, I'm excited to see it. Do you have any questions for me in the lead up, or is there anything specifically that you wanted feedback on as I watched?
Well, I'd like your feedback on kind of like how the clips, like the editing part, and if it kind of like, it was hard to put it also in 90 seconds only and choosing the clips. Like I had lots of clips obviously, but it was kind of hard to put it in 90 seconds. I'd like to know, you know, from an outside point of view, if it made sense. And also the very big trouble I had with exposure, especially, was because I have big windows. And that was a challenge to know how to expose properly. And like, obviously when it's a photo, I just go into my raw file and I just kind of like, they did the windows at the back. I couldn't do that there. So that's something I found really challenging. And I wanted to know what's your kind of tips on how to do that also, like kind of,
Okay. I will have all those things in mind as I watch. First of all, that's one of my favorite songs. I love that song so much.
It took me hours to find a song.
I know. It usually takes a long time to find the right song. And what I think I love so much about it is that it really brought so much like feeling and mood to a slow afternoon. I love, you called it afternoon bliss, like that. The music really paired well with that. So that was a really great choice. And I know it's so hard, especially like to cut off music at 90 seconds and to only, you know, have a film that's 90 seconds. It's a real challenge, but I think what's great about it is that it does kind of force you to be very choosy with the clips that you put into your film. I think it's a common thing that when you first start out, you tend to have clips that are a little bit on the longer side than maybe what's necessary. And I saw that in this a little bit. So there were probably opportunities where you could have cut sooner. Particularly, there was, I think, one, and I'll show you exactly where I mean. This one. So I like that, obviously, like we get this we get his face, and then we get to see the relationship between them, and it's also happening like beautifully on this lyric of how I love you.
Yeah.
But I think it just takes too long. That's the only
Okay.
thing I would say about that. Is it from a visual point of view, it takes too long to get from his face to the dog's face in focus. So in future, an idea that you might have would be to kind of just speed that up a little bit, not in post, but as you shoot it. So it's not something you can fix now, but just when you are shooting something like this and thinking about the length, especially when you know you're shooting for slow motion,
Mm-hmm.
be mindful that you're not going too slow between a rack focus on one person to the next, because you don't want it to be a long time of rack focus. So I think let's just count how long it is. So it's about 10 seconds there.
Yeah.
And so that I would say is probably a little bit too long. And an idea that you could have done, because you changed because of the camera movement, is you could have like maybe 2 or 3 seconds, whatever fits with the music here,
Mm-hmm.
of this, and then cut that clip to from about right before the focus pulls onto the dog's face, maybe like here.
Okay.
And you could, so you're essentially cutting out a little bit of that time that it took you to rack focus and move down. And that would speed up the visual story for the viewer a little bit. The only downside of it is that your camera position hasn't moved as much. So in future, if you were shooting this again, an idea would be that you either speed that up and shoot that a little bit quicker, or change your camera position for whenever you're wanting to show this relationship between two subjects. So
Mm-hmm.
your husband and the dog, right? So you might shoot in this camera position on him, and then you might go either down or up, but closer to the dog.
Okay.
You might move over to the left a little bit and get the dog in focus, but that breaks it up and still conveys this point that you're trying to show here, but just in a more visually interesting way. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes, it does. I did try to move around, and I had other ones that was doing that, but I kind of like I didn't know if it was conveying as much as like changing the focus from one to the other, and I think that's probably why I chose that one.
Yes.
But I see, and then when I was doing it, I was seeing it was long, and I cut a little bit in front. I was cutting it a lot, but because of the lyrics and the music, it kind of felt like I was jumping, because then I didn't know what to jump to. I was like, I can't jump in the kitchen. In the middle of the lyrics. It was kind of weird, and then I didn't know what to do. So I'm not surprised that this is something like in the film, because I struggle with that post.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and you know what, sometimes like I can say this looking at what you've done, but this also might have been the best choice that you could have made with what you had. So take what I say with a grain of salt, but it's just an idea for future. And it also, like, the length of your clips totally matches with the song too, but what you have to be careful about is having it be too long, like having your clips be too long without really visually interesting stuff happening in them. You know what I mean?
So basically, because of the so I was trying to kind of follow the song. So if I don't want to be cutting, like I can't cut to go to like a different type of scene in a way, like kind of like moving from the living room to the kitchen, but I could have cut it in the middle with staying with them both.
Yes.
Makes sense.
I'm gonna watch this real good. This clip right here, I think because it's so static, I would maybe have considered opening with something that had a little bit more movement to it. Only because it's slow motion and
Yeah, we can't see what I'm doing. I've noticed that.
yeah. So that's one thing I would consider there. Also, I think with the like cross dissolves, they're probably not as necessary as you think they might be. Especially because you're cutting right on the music. So I don't unless that's like an artistic choice you wanted to do there. I don't think they're super necessary.
Okay.
Sometimes I think that people use cross dissolves because they feel like it's too jarring of a cut. Like,
Yes, I didn't use it everywhere. I used it only when I felt like it kind of felt like jumpy.
Yes.
And that's when I used it only, because I was kind of like, oh, I'm not sure what's happening. And I didn't know if it was just because I've seen it so many times or if it was so I put that in a couple of places for that reason.
Yes. Yeah. And usually if you feel that way, then you it's just not cut well to the music, like it's not right on the beat of the music, or it might just be that, you know, it's a jump cut, or it might be that a different clip would work better there and it would feel better there. But I would ask yourself when you're doing a cross dissolve, is there another better way that I could do this? But I think that it probably would work fine. You know, cutting here, it might just be that because this felt so static that's
and long,
you felt
maybe.
that this would be, The other thing too is I think that between these two clips, the only real difference in camera position is how close, like there's only a real slight difference in the actual angle. It's mostly just the distance that changes there. And so that could also be why it felt that way when you didn't have the cross dissolve.
Okay, so there was not enough angle. Okay.
Not enough like change in relation to where the camera was shooting at you. So if the camera is more to the left or more to the right, then it wouldn't feel as jarring. But right now, the big difference is just how far it is away from you. So that would have helped too, I think, there. So in terms of exposure, I mean, it looks pretty good to me. There are some things that are a little bit blown out, but it's hard. What I do when I'm shooting is obviously like with live view, you can only just go off of what's going on in the back of your camera, right? So your exposure is basically, you see your exposure in real time as you're shooting because it's showing up on the, what camera are you using?
The 5D Mark III.
Okay, yeah. So you're seeing that in the live view. So your exposure is going to adjust. You're going to see it in real time as it adjusts, as opposed to like when you look through the viewfinder, it doesn't do that. You just see the picture and you're going off the meter. So it does take time to get used to not looking at the meter. One thing that I do that I think helps is shooting in a really flat profile, which I think, are you doing that already or have you?
I'm doing, I think is it called
Neutral?
Natural or neutral or something like that, I think.
Yeah, so that's what it looked like. You were shooting in neutral. So shooting in neutral helps. There's even flatter profiles that you can go out and download as well, which I can talk to you more about later. But that can help, especially when you're finding it really hard, like contrasty. It didn't seem too contrasty. The light seemed really soft. It was more like at this where it's kind of all blown out here. But that might just be more to something to think about where you're placing the camera. So that you're shooting less, because it's virtually impossible to have the outdoors exposed well as the indoors, especially probably at this time of day too. So that might just be a case of shifting where you're standing or where the camera position is, because then like this was beautifully lit, this right here, like beautifully lit. So exposed perfectly to me. But what I do also do is I meter for the highlights, and as in like I expose for the highlights. I don't actually meter anything because I'm not looking at the meter, but I'm looking at the LCD, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm very careful to preserve highlights, and sometimes I will shoot under and lift it after.
Okay.
But it also really depends on the profile that you're using. Some profiles you need to kind of overexpose a little bit, but with neutral, you just have to lean towards as perfectly exposed as possible, maybe just a little bit under, but being really careful about the highlights. And it also depends so much on what mood it is that you're wanting to give too. So whether you want it to be really bright and or whether you want it to be, so much of this to me looked perfectly exposed. So, I didn't really notice it too much of an issue, but as long as the skin tones look good, which they do, then that's all good. This was so sweet. I loved all this. I loved so much. I think you probably could have cut it as well. Maybe to where like about here could have, well, no, before his hand goes up. Or it could have even started here and just got the kiss.
Okay.
But the whole
So I didn't need to really have him like kind of coming within the frame.
Right. You didn't need, that part you didn't need to start from him outside of the frame to coming in. You could have just started like, because that's the moment. That's really all that would have been needed there. What were you making? Like a tart thing?
Yeah, a strawberry tart. That ended up really bad. It took so long to bake it. It was just terrible.
I really loved this clip so much because I felt like from a storytelling point of view, this pulled together that the dog is a big part of your life, but you guys are a couple. And to me, this meant a lot. This had a lot of meaning to it. Even though like we're looking at your dog's butt.
I know that's the first comment my husband gave me. I was like, really?
But because you can see the three of you together, and I mean, I got what you were trying to convey here. So
he was like, "That's how you want to end."
I love it. I love it when they like to give us feedback on our stuff. But yeah, I thought it was really well done, especially like this is your first one, right? Like your very first.
Yeah, it's my first kind of thing. Like the only time I put it on video was after you Creative Live. I took a few shots of my dog, and that was back in May, and that's the only thing I did on video. So this is like. That was my first actually like, oh, what am I going to do as a film and process and put together and all of that.
Oh, well, you did great. You did really, really well.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
I appreciate you doing all of that.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you, Helen. All right, so if you want, you can go ahead and mute yourself and then we can move on. So do I have Kelly here? I think I do. I'm going to unmute you. Kelly,
Hi.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm very excited.
Good.
I'm doing great.
Good.
Great.
So tell me about this film.
Well, I have been wanting to capture my son in his, I asked him, I told him I wanted to do a portrait film with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him what he wanted to be doing in his portrait film. And he said he wanted to be catching bugs in the backyard and catching things and critters. And that's what he does all the time. We homeschool, and he spends most of his day outside catching critters.
Uh-huh.
So, so that's just what he is totally loves to do. So I went out I told him it had to be in the right light. And of course he was catching the critters, all day long and holding onto them, waiting for me to, are you ready to take pictures of me with this bug yet? Are you ready? And so finally when the light was where I wanted it to be, I went outside and I had a few goals in mind. I've been trying to work on stabilization, and then I've been trying to work on moving more in my shots. Mm-hmm. And then of course thinking ahead about the different shot types that I want to get in a scene, because I feel like I'm all over the place. Mm-hmm. Like I shoot something and then I'm just like, I'm run to the next thing. And I feel like that's part of like having the kids, and it just is like, I don't know what I got. We'll see, see if I can put it together. It just wasn't, who knows? And then I try to piece it together. And then, so that was one of my questions is, did I manage some of that? And then the other thing was just, I spliced the heck out of this music. I'm in the middle of Allison's course right now. Uh-huh. And I literally it was before her saying her whole, section of the course that was like, whatever you do, just like, don't slice music. And I was like, wow. Luckily I have a musical background. So, it took me about 3 hours, but I sliced the song because I thought it had to be 90 minutes. I didn't realize that you could have a longer one. Yeah. And so I sliced the song down to be, or 90 seconds, mm-hmm. and so I sliced the crap out of the song. I just butchered it. It was just like, wow, I should have just searched for, a 90-second song, but I didn't know how to do that. So I just figured it out. I was like, oh, that would have been so much easier if I just searched for a 90-second song. Yeah. But anyway, so I did that, and I kind of feel like it's a little bit rushed. I kind of feel like I blew through it because I was, in fact, in the one that I submitted, I just cut the beginning and the end off to make it 90 seconds. And then in my full length, I just extended the beginning and end to include the full song, so the full cut. So anyway, I feel like I kind of blew through the whole thing. Like it's really fast. But yeah, those are kind of my main thing is just sort of, does it look like I planned this? Or does it look like I just kind of picked and chose things, or that kind of thing? And am I doing enough movement in my shots? Like I feel like I get scared of trying different movements because I'm afraid that it's hard enough to like compose and then get focused. You know what I mean? And so I'm afraid that I'm like not, and my audio, I feel like I got to learn how to balance all that. So it's probably really not awesome. I'm learning that right now in Allison's course, but right now I think it's kind of a mess. Okay. So those are all my caveats.
Those are all the things. I love it. Well, I'm excited to watch this because this age is like one of my favorite ages. And my son was 7. Was he 7 when I made that moving portrait of him? He might have, yeah, I think so. And now he's like turning 9 now. So it just reminds me so much of that. So I'm excited. I will have all those things in mind as I go through. So,
okay.
All right. Okay, to begin with, I freaking love the way that you introduced with his shadow. Like, one of the things that I think is hard, or that is hard for people to do, but what makes a really interesting film is when people introduce the character, and that's what you've done, and you've done it so beautifully with that. Like, this the way that, did you ask him to do this, or was he standing?
Well, he was standing there and like he was like moving around like crazy, and then I saw his shadow like that, and I said, would you just stand there for just a second, which is like the hardest thing in the world for him to do. Yeah. But I literally like the shot all around this is him just like, it's like ADD. I mean, he just can't even, but I managed to catch a slow second. So
I really love this so much. And I think this opening is really great.
Thank you.
I love hearing the like the bugs as well. Like it just feels like summer.
I got it. I got it. Can't believe I got it.
Oh my gosh, that voice is so good. That audio is really good.
It's not too messy. I can't tell. I have a hard time hearing whether or not the.
No, it's really good. The only
I mean, I
thing
didn't,
I would
I didn't
say,
remove any noise or anything
the only thing I would say is maybe bring down the levels of
of the bugs.
the bugs in the background. Yeah.
Okay.
Is the dog like his little partner? When he's-
Yes, it's so funny. They do it together. It's like their thing. It's so sweet.
That
It
is
is so
so
sweet.
sweet. This clip right here, was this shot for slow motion or was this standard frame rate?
No, that was shot for slow motion.
Okay.
Does it look
Something
funny?
about it is jumpy. How did you change the frame rate on this one?
So I had them all. I mean, I shoot just like like you've always said, at 24 for audio and at 60. And I usually try to be pretty careful about my shutter speed and try to keep it as close to double as I can.
I don't think that's the issue here. I don't think it's shutter speed. I think it's like when you brought it onto the timeline, before you brought it onto the timeline, did you interpret the footage or did you change it after you brought it onto the timeline?
I interpreted it first.
Huh. Okay. And when you when you exported the film, did you do VBR2 pass or something different?
That I don't know, and I'd have to look it up. When I exported this the first time, I got a whole bunch of glitches in it.
Okay.
I don't know why it did that. And then I looked online and started Googling things, and I tried something, and something worked. And then, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're like, it worked. I don't care what it was.
Yes.
I have no idea what it was that worked. Well, next time I'll try to figure it out.
Okay.
But I will look up and make sure that I'm doing VBR2 pass. I'm writing that down because I don't remember.
Yeah. So somewhere in the Academy are my export settings for Premiere Pro. So I would just check and make sure that it's because when you export, sometimes if you don't change that and you leave it to default, it might be like CBR or it might be VBR1 pass. VBR2 pass just gives you the best quality, and it can kind of if you don't. It increases the file size, but it just means that it tends to be a smoother export when you export it. So
okay, that's good to know. I'm using DaVinci. Would that be the same in that?
Oh no, it'll be different in DaVinci. Let me look at that and I'll get back to you, because in DaVinci there's export settings that will be a higher quality. So the main thing I would look for is just choosing an export setting that would give you the best quality. And that's going to mean that it does more passes as it goes through, and it'll be a better quality at the end. It'll be less jumpy. But if you, in the Student Hub, I have the 9-day mini Keepsake film challenge, and in there are the DaVinci Resolve tutorials, and there's an export tutorial in there, which might, I don't know if you had looked at that or not, but that might help with the export settings. But I'll also have a look. We can talk offline about that. But I think that might be what's going on there. Okay, let's keep.
Okay.
Because to me, this looks like a clip that was shot at a lower frame rate and was slowed down, like almost like it has gaps between it, but I don't think it's shutter speed at all.
Okay.
I love that. Dog. And also timed to the music so well. Also, Kelly, I just want to say these colors are amazing, like so beautiful. The blues and the greens and everything's just gorgeous.
Well, thank you, because color grading is not my specialty.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That is, I really need to take that class.
Here it goes.
It's so beautifully shot, Kelly. Like, just so, there's so much I love about this. And the way that you timed the bugs flying away with the music, just those little bits, like that's perfection.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like you have done an amazing job putting this together. I mean, in terms of story and what you've chosen to put in, and your question earlier about like, did I choose the right things? I think everything you chose was perfect. There wasn't a single clip where I was like, that feels out of place, or that just feels like filler. Sometimes it's I can really tell when clips are just being used as filler between things. It felt to me like every single clip had a purpose and a meaning and a story that contributed to the overall story. I think you did such an amazing job with this, putting it together. So story-wise, really, really well done. There's not much.
Thank you. I think that 90-second limit really helped me. I do really well with limitations. I think a lot of creatives do, and that seems like such a huge challenge at the time, but I think it really helped me sort of pick the best that I could, that I had, and just sort of narrow it down like that.
Yes. It strengthens it as a whole when you do that. So really, has he seen this? What does he think?
He has seen it. He likes it, but I think that he likes the shooting part of it better than he really, because he likes the attention. Do you know what I mean? Like the connection. Yeah. And so he, over the past couple of days, he just keeps asking me, do you want to shoot some more? I caught some more of those moths. Do you want to come shoot some more? Do you want to come? You know what I mean? He keeps asking me, which is really sweet. And I'm just like, I've already made the movie, but I'll go ahead and, will you take another movie of me? Will you make another one? Yeah. It's really sweet. So I don't know that he really cares that much about the product. He's just kind of like, no, it's all about, my mom giving me all this attention. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, totally. And it'll be something that comes to him later. He'll realize it later, and then he'll be in love with it. This will, honestly, there's not much that I can give you feedback on. There's only just the slow motion clips, to me, just feel like they're choppy, and I think it's to do with either an export setting or the timeline maybe settings as well. Since I know you're using DaVinci, you have to set the timeline a specific way first, and then change the clips. So it could be that, and it could just be the export. But maybe we can have a conversation.
I bet it's export settings, because I'm importing them the same way that I did on in Premiere, making sure that the first clip I pull on is a 24 frame clip, so that it sets it. And so I've tried to be conscious of that, although the technical part of it is still, a little bit challenging for me to understand all of the different terminology and stuff. But the exporting, I'm sure I'm messing up, and I'm not really sure why. I probably need to just go back in and look at your tutorial again.
It might be that. The difference between DaVinci and Premiere is that when you first create the project, you have to set the timeline settings first. Sometimes that can something that you don't want it to be. You have to do that before you even import the clips into the project. So, because sometimes they might import in, and then when they import, sometimes it changes the timeline. settings based on what the clips import as rather than what you pull onto the timeline first. So
Okay.
it could be that, or it could be the export. But either way, I mean, it's not enough, or you had so much like normal frame rate clips that I don't think it really matters that much. Like I wouldn't go through and you could try re-exporting it, but I mean, if it's a timeline settings issue, I would just leave it because that can be really confusing and difficult to redo. But we'll see. Maybe try the export settings and see how you go with that. And yeah, reach out if anything else. But this was so good. Really, really.
Thanks, Courtney.
Really loved it. And the colors, I'm just blown away. So good.
Oh, thank you. It's it's like the LXC, like the what is it? What Tribarclaggio, yeah. I'm a big old copycat. I know a lot of people use that.
Did you
I'm so not original, but I liked it so much.
Did you color them in Lightroom first?
No, I have a plugin that I bought online that you can export a Lightroom preset into DaVinci, and then it lets me color grade them, the clips with it.
Cool.
So it costs like $10, but it's nice because then I can sort of do that. And this is the first time I've ever used that, but I'm really happy with it because I'm not very good at sort of color. I feel like that's a challenge for me.
Yeah.
And somebody just asked in the chat, I saw, did you use an ND filter? Yes, I absolutely did.
Mm-hmm.
And I put it on my camera pretty much every time I shoot film outside because I need it because otherwise I can't do anything at a low aperture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What lens?
Yeah, I like my ND filter. I was using two lenses. I used my Sigma Art 35.
Yeah.
I'm using a Sony, and I have a what's it called, a Megabones adapter on there. So for all the money I spent trying to get a lighter camera, then I added on another piece of equipment, and now it's heavier than my Canon was.
Yeah.
And then I also used for a few of the shots a macro that I have for some of the little insect shots.
Yes.
I got in there with a little macro lens.
Those were amazing. And so, I mean, you also talked about stabilization. I thought your stabilization was outstanding. And now I'm even more impressed because stabilizing with a macro lens is not easy.
Well, I mean, sadly, my eyes are going, Courtney, and I can't see through my view. Like, I have to look through the viewfinder. So I'm having a really hard time with like I can't even use the strap and like pull it back because I can't see the screen. Yeah. And I'm trying different things with glasses and wearing glasses and stuff, but I'm 42 and it's happening. Like I just can't. But I pull it up, when I want to get a shot, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to pull it up to my eye, and I just do, and I'm like, well, it's going to be either I can't focus or I can't stabilize. One's going to have to suffer because I can't see. I don't know how you guys do it and see the viewfinder. I can't see it.
I can't see either, Kelly. I can't. I have my prescription I wear contacts and glasses, and it's like -5. Like I can't see either. I am guessing most of the time. So I'm with you. It's not easy.
Guessing? I mean, so I have the little red thing, the thing on the Sony that gives you the red. It highlights everything in red when it's in focus when you're in manual. Yeah. And I've been using that. It's not foolproof, but at least I have something that's sort of telling me. And that's helping me considerably, although then sometimes it gets in the way of like a really, like if it's finite, then I can't really tell because the red is in the way and I have no idea, what's in focus. So I'm struggling to find my way. Well, I have my limitations.
I couldn't tell, and this was wonderful. So you should be super proud.
Thank you. You made me very, very pleased. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
No worries.
Boost of confidence, big time. Thank you.
Good. All right. Thank you, Kelly. I will move on. Let's see the next one. I've got Tracy. Do I have Tracy here with me? No, I don't think Tracy's here. Okay. Next one I've got Christy. The fishing trip. We'll have Christy here. I see Christy's name. Christy, can you hear me? I just tried unmuting you, but you might have gone. I can see her on the phone. I think she left. She might be trying to come back. Just see if she hops back in. Okay, might hop over to, oh, Chrissy raised your hand. Hold on. I gotta stop sharing so I can look at the chat. How do I don't know what it means when you raise your hand. You can
you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I was like, I have no idea how to do this.
No worries. Okay. So let me just hop back over. Hopefully everybody can see the videos again now. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really good. So tell me about this film that you made.
So this film is about my boys
Mm-hmm.
and their dad, and their crazy addiction with fishing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not usually the one that's getting up in the morning with them and heading out, and so I wanted to join in this time around and capture it for them. So
Awesome.
yeah.
And so was there anything that you struggled with or any questions that you have for me or any things you want me to specifically look for as I go through this?
I struggle with a lot with this video.
Okay.
First off, it was shot in the dark a lot,
Okay.
in the early morning. And I was shooting with my XT2, so there's no in-body stabilization.
Yeah.
And driving around in the car and then getting on
Yeah.
the boat later on,
Yeah.
a lot of movement going on.
Uh-huh. Yes.
So yeah, so that was interesting. And then audio was brand new to me on this one too.
Mm-hmm.
And since I didn't have the grip for the XT2, I couldn't put in headphones and listen while I was doing it. So
Yeah,
that was
that is something about the XT that I found so annoying. Like, why not? If you're capturing,
right.
why not have a headphone jack? What is up with that? Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah, that was a struggle.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, I will go through this and keep all that in mind. This opening, I really loved how you did this. Like how it went
Oh,
from
thank you.
dark into even just the way that like his face lit up, your husband driving, like I loved that. And then the boys in the back of the car, really well done. I think the only thing here, there was a cross dissolve I wanted to ask about. Well, I think maybe it was that one, but it only seemed like the ones that were happening before that didn't seem as noticeable. I think it was just this one that I seemed more noticeable because it was something outside of the car maybe. but I wondered if that was an artistic choice, or if that was because it felt like, I was talking to Helen earlier about if it just felt because it felt like the cut was too jarring, or what was the choice? What was the reason behind the choice there?
Well, I think that one reason why the cross dissolves look so jumpy in this film is because I edited or I color graded a little bit, and then I did the cross dissolves, and then I went back in and I changed the color on a few different clips, and then so I don't think that the newly edited colors were the same as what was in the previous cross dissolve, if that makes
Okay.
sense at all.
Yeah.
So I think it messed it all up, but I was using Shotcut and I was just having
Okay.
issues with it. So
Okay. Yes. All right. I love this. Really love like the mood of this and the way that it introduces the next section, and the transition between, like, the storytelling of this so far is really, really good. Come on. So this clip right here, I think probably could just be shorter. Like, I think it could probably even just be like to there, maybe.
okay.
Just because, like, we see the next boy getting in, but we don't see much after that. And so it almost feels like his step into the boat feels like the beginning of a story that then gets cut off. Whereas if you just continued this clip, like, you start the beginning, like the story just of this clip is like he's in the boat and the two of them are on the dock helping, like, getting it ready. So that's one story, and then the next story is the older boy getting in, and that doesn't get to complete. So I would probably cut it off before he starts to get into the.
Okay. Yeah, I have that problem with like not filming long enough. I feel like I always like end up at the wrong place.
And also, I think sometimes we feel like more needs to be included than actually does to be able to get the point across, or, you know, to be able to show like what's happened. And so, like, in this instance, it was quite long, and I do that all the time too. Like, I'll cut, like, something else will happen and I just like stop filming and I'm like, why did I do that? Because now I can't, it's not like I can start right again and continue that on.
Right.
That gets easier with experience. I love that. I love the light on the water there. And you did a great job including the audio as well. I feel like that, especially hearing the voice at the end and just throughout, I think you did a really great job putting together like the feeling of what it's like to go fishing with them.
Thank you.
Yeah. I loved, like, particularly this so much.
Yeah.
That was so good. And you got a lot of details. And I think if there was anything, this felt a little bit, you know how earlier I was saying that one clip felt too long. Some of these felt a little bit too short. So
Okay.
I think finding a balance between that as you're editing And
Yeah.
like using the music as your guide as well will help with that too. And I know that like it did speed up here, so it felt mostly appropriate. I think there's probably a couple of places where it could have been maybe even just like taking a clip out entirely and just letting the other clips have a little bit more space.
Okay.
I really liked this. I thought you did a great job of getting like all the little details of what it was they were doing. This right here, I think there's something in between, maybe.
It's the cross dissolve. Yeah, I just didn't.
Okay. That's all
Something
that
with the grading and the cross dissolve didn't work.
was. Okay. So that right there, it looks like, did he catch a fish there?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
They both caught a fish.
They both caught a fish. So one thing, because it looks like, and this is why I think just this section felt really quick, is it looks like maybe did the fish go into the cooler there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whose hand is that putting it? Is that your
That's my husband's hand. Well, that's with the camo sweatshirt, that's me. And then my husband's hand is the one putting the fish in.
Okay. Yes. So what would have been really cool here would have been to sort of see this story follow through. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
to like he's caught the fish, then to see him either him with the fish or like a close up of the fish or something. But I also know when you're in the moment and you're also supposed to be helping and you're like meant to be participating as a parent, it's really hard to do all those things. So
Right. Yeah, and I have a clip of him catching the fish. I just didn't know if that would have been too repetitive with the clip later on catching the other fish.
right.
Because it's kind of very similar.
Mm.
The same frame and everything was just really similar. So I didn't know if that would just be too repetitive.
Yeah. Oh, so this one down here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to know without sort of seeing it all, but
Yeah.
yeah. I'm gonna watch this one. Maybe not. I mean, especially because they were two different, like you're different kids that caught the fish in those two things. It could have worked, but I mean, and I think that sometimes, you know, we will have to just do the best we can with what we have, and so it's with the clip of you like helping put in the fish, that also works too, especially given that it's you doing it, and so you're kind of in it a little bit as well. They would know that. Us as a viewer, we don't know that because
right.
we don't view anywhere else, but the boys will know that. So, you know, but really, really well done overall. I think, you know, you filmed this in a really challenging environment, and so you had a lot of things kind of going against you, and I think you did really well to push through those and put this together anyway. Not only
Thank
the
you.
challenging like place that you were shooting on a boat, driving first and then on a boat, and also helping. And then the editing, I know that it was a real challenge for you, but you pushed through that and put this together. So I think you did really, really well. So
Thank you. That means a lot. Thanks.
do you have any questions or anything else? Does that all make sense? Anything else you want to ask about?
No, yeah, there's just a lot of firsts for me in this video with the stabilization and the audio and manual focus. There's just a lot of new things. So, and I wasn't sure like how the clips at the beginning would turn out because I think my ISO was probably 6400. So I wasn't sure how grainy it was going to end up being.
Yeah. Well, I think you exposed it perfectly for, you know, setting the mood of what you were doing. Like it's obviously first thing in the morning, so it's dark. and then, you know, you kind of, I think you made the right choice in the way that you exposed it, because it really helped like set the mood and the introduction for the story as a whole. So I think it was good choices that you made there. So well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Okay,
All
so
right.
thank you so much for sharing that, Christy. You can mute yourself, and we'll hop over to do another one. Let's see. Whoa, I just brought it down to the thing. Do I have Julia here?
Hi.
Hi, Julia.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
You want to tell me about your film?
Yes, so I had originally started with, I wanted to do something meaningful. So I love morning time in my house, just getting the baby out of her bed and helping my daughter pick out her clothes, and nothing was just working out. It was just such a chaos morning, and I haven't quite figured out how to tell stories in the midst of chaos that's sometimes happening, like in your personal life, you know, because it's just so much going on.
Mm-hmm.
But I went ahead and I tried to shoot through that, and then I downloaded the clips and was just so frustrated with so many different things, and I pretty much gave up. And day 9 rolls around, and I was like, I really have to. I think I saw a quote, something that somebody had posted, maybe it was even you, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to take her to the lake, and there's no real story here.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want to just give up. It's only my 3rd attempt at a film,
Mm-hmm.
and I know there's lots of issues. Like I just realized when you were talking a few films back, I didn't interpret the footage, and I don't know, like I have a lot of issues with camera shake. So I had literally practiced, you know, watching the movements and replaying all that stuff that you go over in terms of movements. And so I'm still super shaky, and I don't know if I'm doing the proper lens selection. I forgot the ND filter. I mean, just, you know, it's a lot, but I keep reminding myself this is the 3rd attempt. So
Yes.
it's not going to be perfect.
Yes. Absolutely. That is, and you have to keep that in mind, because it can be really overwhelming at the beginning, and there is so much to think about. But then once you do it, and if you continue to do it and you push through that, then you'll be so happy that you did, you know, like it's just getting through that. And I can totally relate to that. And I mean, even now, like lots of times I forget my ND filter, or, you know, I have gotten frustrated. I can't even count like how many times I've wanted to throw my computer at the wall because of something that Premiere Pro has done, or even DaVinci has done, you know, just trying to figure things out. But keep pushing through it, and it's really, really worth it. So you ended up going to the park, and
Yeah. So she just picked out one of her favorite dresses to wear, and she loves long dresses. So at least that is special in that regard. And I mean, there was nothing. I had no intentions for it. You know, we just went, and just kind of went with it. So unfortunately, you know, like I see all these beautiful recaps of these videos that you've just done with everyone, and it's like a fishing trip and, you know, outside playing, and there's like a story, and it's so beautiful, and I feel like I'm missing that story aspect. But I guess, like you said, it'll come. You stick with it.
It does come. And so can you tell me a little bit about your background as a photographer? What do you normally shoot?
So I'm a wedding photographer. Yeah. So I've shot weddings for 7 years. And so it's funny. I think it was about 4 years ago. I just randomly was like, oh, I think I'll see what this video option on my camera does. And I turned it on, and I was like, that's crazy. I completely turned it back off because I, you know, was interested in it, but working with videographers at weddings, I didn't want any part in video because their workload is massive, and it is just it looked like such a huge undertaking. And, you know, it's one of those situations where you don't have the raw file to like make all the mistakes. And I purposely shoot like underexposed, for example, on purpose, so I can bring back my files and you know, do more creative things to my wedding work. So this is but I don't remember, it was a creative live, just something jumped up on Facebook once with you, with the creative live that you did, and I bought the course and I watched it and I was like, this actually has meaning. Like, this is so beautiful. And once I watched that, I told my husband, I was like, I don't want to do weddings anymore. Like, this video is amazing. Like, and once I start something, I really try to, you know, learn it and do it properly. But this has been seriously challenging. I mean, I didn't expect it to be easy, but it's really hard.
Yes. And but at the same time, like, there are sometimes it's a mindset thing, right? And it takes kind of just a little bit of getting over maybe some things that you're used to doing, like underexposing and all of that you kind of have to just tweak a little bit then, but you push through that, it makes you a better photographer, and everything else improves, and like even your photography work will improve through doing this with video. So from a storytelling point of view, though, as a wedding photographer, you have that experience there. I think sometimes, and like, okay, the Keepsake film that I made for my daughter, right? She was playing in the backyard and singing. You know, there wasn't like a huge story there or anything. It was purely just to capture her at the age that she was at. And so, you know, I think it's important to also know, like, especially as you're practicing and you're doing things like this, like, it doesn't always have to have a wonderful storyline or an epic storyline, or, you know, it can just be like something, you know, moving portrait, which is what I see that as being for her. It's less about what she's doing and less about a story of the day than it is about characteristics of her. And so, you know, kind of reframing how you're thinking about it might too help with that. But okay, and so was there anything that with this that, you know, you were thinking about as you were shooting that you want me to think about as I'm watching? Any questions or anything that you besides story that you struggled with?
I don't necessarily know of anything that pops out, because I feel like you're gonna know, obviously. You're gonna just let me know what that is.
Yes.
One of the concerns I had was that when I look at it is the lens variance. I didn't know if I should have chosen the lens that I did, and I'll kind of let you look at that first before I go into that. That way you can see if you know what your thoughts are. And I obviously know I'm shaky and I'm working on that, but you know, transitions and just stuff like that, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I do things in video, like, you know, if you were to do something in photography where you take where you isolate the color, you know, it's something that's a total fad that you would never do anymore. Am I doing something like that in video that's like, oh gosh, you shouldn't be doing that, you know? Like, I don't know.
I'll tell you.
Does that make sense though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll keep that in mind. Okay. I love that you said that. Okay.
I like to stand. We can build a castle. We can jump in the water. Jump, splash, splash. May the good Lord bless and keep you. Fill you with His peace. His face will shine upon you, even as you sleep. Every day you're changing. Sometimes I wish it wasn't true. Hearts are made for giving. I've given mine to you. May you never May you always have a blanket for the cold. May the living light inside you be the compass as you go. May you always know how my hands move. May you always know how my hands move.
Okay, cool. So, tell me what lens you are using. I feel like I'm seeing a 35, but this doesn't feel like a 35. What are you
Yeah,
using?
so I was using a 35 and a 135.
Oh, okay. Is this a 135, this clip?
That is a 135 right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it is so really, really hard to stabilize with a 135. Like the longer the focal length, like that, it just exponentially increases how difficult it is to stabilize. So I would stick with a 35. Do you have a 50?
I do, yeah.
I would stick with a 35 or a 50 at the beginning, just while you're starting out, because I think that it'll just increase your frustration if you're trying to stabilize with 135. As beautiful as the lens is, it won't feel beautiful to you because you're not going to be able to get it stable unless you're shooting with a monopod, which isn't the goal here. If you want to be truly free, that sounds so weird saying that. If you want to be truly free, try and be handheld. But I think you'll have more success with, and I can tell that in some of these clips. The clips that are shot that are wider are better stabilized than the ones that are shot on that lens. So I would say that. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, throughout the whole thing, it looks shaky, but yes.
Yeah. It's less so with the 35 clips. So another thing that for me kind of stood out in terms of story is just that, except for like this where she's barefoot, because she's playing like in sand and the water, but she's got this kind of formalish kind of feeling dress on. It doesn't fit in as well with the environment to me, but so I think there might be a little bit of an opportunity there. Like once she gets barefoot, it's better. But I think like this, I think the black and the black dress as well, maybe just in contrast with the colors and the feel of the sort of organic, sort of natural earthy tones that are surrounding her feels almost like just a little bit of a harsh difference. Do you know what I mean?
No, I totally do. We compromise between black and hot pink, though.
You know what? Sometimes you just have to let it go, right? Like, just have to do what makes.
No, that makes perfect sense.
Just an idea. So let me watch it again.
I like to stand. We can build a castle. We can jump in the water. Jump, splash, splash.
Did you record that after, or?
Yeah, so I recorded that in her bedroom because it was so incredibly windy out there. There was no chance for any audio.
Yeah. Oh, well, I love that that's in there because, you know, that's something like when she's 12 and 14, she's not going to talk like that anymore. So
yeah, right.
That's so memorable. Like that's something that is so good to have and to have done. In future, an idea would be if you, and this is hard to do, especially with a kid this age, but you know, getting them into a room. How did you record that? What did you record that on? Was it your phone or?
No, I just use my camera, and I use the oh goodness, the little fluffy thing that you recommended.
Uh-huh. Yeah, the little fluffy thing. That's a dead cat.
Yes.
Yes. The
I said inexperienced. So yeah, I used that, and
yes.
I did the recording in her room, which is, the quietest area. Is the audio really awful?
It's not awful. I think it's so with acoustics, if you are in a room with a lot of hard surfaces, then the voice can kind of bounce off and feel and can sound a little bit tingy sometimes. And so if you're in a room with a lot of really soft surfaces, and like you could do this just by like sitting in a closet full of clothes, or but just envision a room with more soft surfaces and less hard surfaces. And I don't know what her room is like, so maybe it was a mixture of both. But that is something that can help kind of make the voice sound a bit richer and softer without like the tinginess. But in saying that, I mean, it's not anything I would go back and redo or anything like that. It's just if you wanted to record another one in future, then that's an idea to think about. And that will help kind of improve the audio just a little bit. But it certainly wasn't bad. One thing I would say is you're asking about, how like the selective color thing. So I would try to move away from using any transitions at all at this point, and really push yourself to make clean cuts. So no dip to blacks. What are you editing in?
Premiere.
Okay, so you've used dip to black at least once, I think, and some cross dissolves in there as well.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes we do that, especially when we are first starting out, because it sort of helps soften it and it makes it feel like it flows better because the images kind of combine with each other, and it seems to help. But I think what it does is it stops us from actually really exploring how to do it better without using those things. And so, and ways to do this are making really being really precise with the cuts to the music and editing to the beat of the music. In the Academy, we have a course by Allison Redman on Discover the Power of Music and Audio. She details for people who don't have a background in music, how to do that and how to really look for and listen for phrasing and how to find the beats and cut to the beats. The thing that I noticed when I first started was, as I was editing, when I would edit and I would put clips side by side, if I didn't cut it like exactly to the beat, then they felt more jolting. Like they felt almost like jarring, like jumpy. They just didn't feel right. And so I would use a cross dissolve and I would smooth it out and I'd be like, that's much better. But then once I started to really edit to the beats and listen specifically for phrases in the music, I didn't need the cross dissolves anymore. And I felt like it really improved and strengthened the clips overall. And so that's something I would work towards doing for you. I think it's a common thing to do when you first start out, but working towards not like trying to avoid using them until you are at a point where it's an artistic choice. And so like if you're trying to create some sort of double exposure feel or something like that, then cross dissolves are really, really great for that. As well as like layering clips over the top of each other and things like that. But I would look towards doing that later. And for now, try to avoid using them and focus on getting your cuts really clean. And if you feel like it's jolting, then use a different clip or, try something different, or zoom in on the timeline, listen to the music over and over and over again, and really get the cut precise. And you'll see a big difference when you do that. Does that make sense?
No, that absolutely makes sense.
Okay.
Keep you, fill you with his peace. His face will shine upon you, even as you
This is an example. Sorry.
Every day you're changing. Sometimes
Just my husband's calling me. So this is an example of where you've moved across her. What was it?
even as you sleep.
Do you see how, like, if for here, we're on the right side of her.
Yeah.
Even.
And then here, we're on the left side of her.
Yeah.
So keep those things in mind, not only while you're shooting, but also while you're editing. Try and think about where your camera position is in relation to the subject when you're putting clips side by side like this. And a better clip probably would be, you know, something shooting above down on her, or you know, more detail like of her hand or something to go right after this, rather than one where you've moved all the way over to the other side of her. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense. It's like, you know, I attribute that to shooting for the wedding album.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yes. Yep. That's good. And, you know, keeping in mind like things that she's doing as well. So, you know, she's here and she's dancing in the water. And like, honestly, this is one of the most challenging things about shooting with just one subject is, you know, what they're doing, because they're the only person. So much easier when you got more than one person in the frame that you're shooting. But being mindful of what it is that she's doing. So here she's like playing in like dancing in front of the water, and then in the very next clip she's sitting down and you're in front of her. So it's again kind of a similar thing. So just keeping in mind a better way to transition between these two clips, maybe also because they're not exactly the same shot type as in terms of distance between you and her, but they're similar enough. A better change would be like a really close detail shot, if you know you weren't going to follow along with the same like where she actually is. If you got like a detail shot of her hair kind of blowing as she turned or whatever, and then you went to the clip of her sitting down, or if you went to her hair blowing in, like a more detailed shot close up of her hair blowing in the wind here, and then you went to this shot type of her sitting on the sand, something like that kind of helps break up, and it gives us time as a viewer to sort of subconsciously fill in the blanks of where it is and what she's doing. Just by changing up your camera position and your shot type makes a huge difference in that. And that's something that you think about as you're shooting, but you also think about it a lot as you're editing. So it's making those choices based on what you shot at a time. But you also have to make sure that you're shooting enough of that at the time. So just, you know, as you're shooting, think to yourself, how many ways can I shoot this one thing? How many ways can I shoot her spinning in the sand right here? Well, there's this way, and there's also getting in closer to her. There's also, you know, going in closer, shooting down on her. You know, maybe getting in even further back from her. So trying to give yourself as many options as you can in a moment will then make it easier to edit later, because you have lots more to work with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I love this clip so much.
Now that you've mentioned that, I realize I literally jump all over the place constantly. I just like decided, okay, this is my favorite clip. I'm gonna put that there, and then this one here, without any, you know, thought process to how it's transitioning.
Yes, yeah. I mean, think about it like an album, really.
You always know
love my children coming home.
Yeah. And, you know, from like, I like the birds, but there wasn't anything like really with her and her connection to the birds. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I would think of another, and you could have even just have ended it with her, you know, running on the dock there. You wouldn't even need to have the birds in there. But so thinking about all of those little things of what, you know, how in each moment as you're shooting, making sure, giving yourself a lot of options to work with. And then as you're editing, trying to really think about the story arc and how you want to kind of transition in between the clips and being really mindful of what you put side by side. But you're doing really, really well. And it's a challenging transition, but you've got this. Like, you've got the experience and you've got the skill and you've got the ability. And it's just a matter of doing more. And the more you do, the better you'll get. Like, I reckon it'll only take maybe 3 or 4 and you'll see a drastic difference. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to go over that. It was so helpful.
I'm glad that was helpful. All right, well, it is 12:43, so I have got to hop off here. But we've done, I think, quite a few, at least 5. So thank you guys so much for all being here. If I didn't get to yours, I'm really sorry, but I've only got enough time for what we've got. So thanks for coming, and I hope that was helpful to everybody who stayed and watched, even if your film didn't get critiqued. There's a lot to be gained from just watching other people's films getting critiqued. So thank you all for being here. I will say it again, and I will see you all in the Academy. I'll chat to you soon.